If you think about how you evaluate what's going on in your life and the experiences that you have of it, you'll find that the way we do that is by asking ourselves questions. Questions about the thing that's just happened. What, was that okay? Or, oh, is that supposed to happen that way? But also about our relationship to the event. Was I good enough? Did I do what was supposed to happen? Or how come they're not doing what I expect them to do? Yeah, so the way we tend to think about things is in the form of questions, and then we tend to seek an answer to those questions. So that's a general process in how our thinking tends to be structured. Now, questions have a big advantage. The moment you ask a question, it directs our focus. Yeah, so you might recall from the last module, from module 2 and module 1. In module 1, we focused specifically on focus as a life hack, as a tool for getting ourselves back on track. And then in module 2, we looked at the vision board and how by creating a vision board, we can direct our focus to the things that we want. Yeah, questions have the same impact. So questions are also habitual. We tend to ask the same questions over and over and over again. And often they're things that we first learned to do when we were young, when we were little kids. And we ended up with a core question or two, and that is what we measure pretty much everything against. And it comes back in different flavors and different shapes, etc. Needless to say that whatever questions you ask yourself, but also the ones that you don't ask, they have a really big impact on your future. They will impact what you are going to focus on and therefore what you will put your efforts into. So considering questions is definitely worth our time. There we've got the neural pathways again. So the same thing that we said about physiology is true for emotions as well, is true for language as well. We tend to use the same language with ourselves over and over again. So again, it's going to be our job to build new neural pathways, new language, and to start using it regularly. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So questions, why are they so awesome? Because when you change what you focus on, it immediately changes how you feel. If you stop asking yourself why you can't get it right, you might actually start to find an answer that's going to indicate a possibility of moving forward because you're no longer focused on the negative. They change what we delete. So remember how we started with not all information that comes in through our senses gets kept? We actually delete a lot of stuff because it's too much for our brain to handle. So by asking a different question, it also changes the information that we take in and the information, so the information that we keep and the information that we delete. That means that somebody who is feeling pretty miserable, yeah, is likely asking themselves a question to do with, why does this have to happen to me? Focusing on themselves and focusing on things not going their way, yeah? Does that mean that there is no reason in their life to be happy? Absolutely not. It's just that through their current filters, they're focused on what's not going right, and they've forgotten what is going right. So about deletions, it's about, so just explaining it again, when you think of how much information comes into our brain, it's too much, right? We can't deal with all the stimuli that come in. So our brain is programmed to select what's important to our survival and what's not, okay? And it relies on pre-built neural pathways and standard ways of how we've dealt with situations in the past before to do that again. And everything that doesn't fit in with that gets deleted, yeah? So if you know that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of stimuli that come our way every minute, we're not taking all of that in. We're only taking a very small part of that in, and that very small part is what we're focused on right now. Everything else is gone, okay? I trust that makes it clearer. If not, let me know, because I can explain it again or explain it in a different way. Okay? So if we look at the fact that so by changing what you save, it automatically deletes the rest. No, by deciding what you save, it deletes the rest. Yeah? So your brain can only cope with so much. So you choose what you focus on, and everything else, it doesn't keep. That's why it's so important to get really clear on what you want to focus on. Because if it becomes really, really nilly, then you're going to get a pretty average hand. You're going to get some pretty average things showing up in your life. Or even worse, if you keep telling yourself all the things that are terrible, then guess what's going to show up in your life? All the things that are terrible, because that's what your mind is focused on. So that's what it shows up for you. Yeah? So as a result, what you focus on, and thus also what you delete, impacts really, really strongly what is possible for you, what you see as a way forward. Because everything that you've deleted is no longer possible. You can't see it. You can't hear it. You don't even know it's there. Okay? So this is where questions come in, because once you get really clear on what that question is that you keep asking yourself, and you shift it into something that works for you, it's going to have an impact on what you start to notice, and therefore what becomes available to you. There's a lot of people who have very average core questions that they keep asking themselves. Things like, what's wrong with me? Or why can't they get it right? Or why can't I get it right? Why me? Why won't it work? In fact, I could have easily asked myself this question earlier, and I deliberately chose not to, because I know what the answer to those things are. If I keep asking myself, what's wrong with me? What do you think's going to show up? Proof of what's wrong with me. What's going to be deleted? Evidence that there's nothing wrong with me. If I keep asking myself, why can't they get it right? I'm going to keep looking at people around me as though there's something wrong with them, which is the other side of something wrong with me. So either something is wrong with them or something is wrong with me. Both don't really work. So if that's my question, why can't they get it right? Then I'm going to keep looking for evidence, looking for proof that they can't get it right. And every piece of information that shows me that they can actually do something right, I don't even see it. I don't notice it. So you can start to see that these core questions is so important to get clear on for yourself. What is it that you're constantly asking yourself? Because if that's something limiting, that has a huge impact on everything else. Our question creates our reality and our experience. That is so true, because it impacts what you can and cannot perceive. And knowing that there's a hell of a lot of stuff that gets deleted, it might be worth actually paying attention to this. So here's over to you. What's your core question? And you might need to think about it a little bit. It might be that one of the things that you saw before spoke to you, you recognize yourself. Figure it out. If you know what it is, feel free to share. If you don't know yet, I recommend that you make some time to look at it. Another common question is, why am I not good enough? Or why does nobody like me? Is another common disempowering question. So Kshama's example is, how can I be productive? Yeah, now that falls into the opposite side of the spectrum. Yeah, so that is something that if you were to use that and ask yourself that every day, that would likely give you expansive results. Yeah, it would likely get you on track of what you want to experience. For Mickey, it used to be, how does that prove that I'm not worth it? Such a common thing. Yeah, there's so many people who are dealing with that right now. And she's changed it to, what is good about a situation, about me, or about a person? Now that is so much more empowering, isn't it? Because then you get to look for the good in stuff. Because if you ask a negative sounding question, something that makes you smaller, something that diminishes you, guess what it does to your self-esteem? There's very little left. Now notice with the core question, it will especially come up when you're feeling a bit down, when things are not going so well. Yeah, so it might be that when you're on a roll and things are going well, that your new empowering question is doing all the work and doing all the heavy lifting, and that's fine. Notice for yourself if that old core question, because all of us have one somewhere, if that old core question is still present when things are not going so well and you need support. And if you do catch that, start just telling yourself the new question. Yeah, as soon as you catch it, you can shift it, ask a new one. And one way of doing that, and you can continue going with the one you already have, or if you want to expand them and add some more, you can as well. A good way to do it is, if you were to create an amazing question for someone that you love so much, what question would you like to give them? What question would you like them to feel empowered by? To feel like if they're asking that question every day, they start to glow a little bit from the inside out and it starts to grow. Make it a question where it's something that propels them forward. It's something that makes them feel passionate and makes them look forward to what comes next. Something that gives them strength when things are not going right. Because that's where it's most needed. Okay? How can I make my day fulfilling? By itself, that's a good question, although it also implies that right now it's not. And that might be something to look into. In a moment, Kshama, I'm going to show some questions to do with problem solving and to do with morning rituals and evening rituals. And there's a slightly different wording of that same question that might be of use to you. How can I make this work? Absolutely. Yeah. What's the gift in this? Just because things didn't go as planned tonight doesn't mean that things went wrong at all. In fact, the gift in my computer doing whatever it did earlier is that we get to be here now. And we get to have this webinar with the three of us and adding even more onto it, which is something that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. So even more people get to benefit from it. Okay? So once you've got some questions, and it might help to think of somebody that you care about to create them. Sometimes it's a bit harder to make them for ourselves than it is for others. How would it be if you gave that question to yourself as a present and asked yourself that question each day for the next 30 days? How would that impact the quality of your life and how you started to see things? How would that start to build those new neural pathways and to nurture them so that they start to grow? Give it a go. So I put together some